What if I told you that losing everything could actually be the beginning of your greatest comeback? 3.5 years ago, I was rear-ended in a car accident that destroyed not just my car, but my entire life as I knew it. Today, I want to share how rock bottom became the foundation for rebuilding something incredible. Picture this. You're lying in a hospital bed, and the doctor tells you your injuries mean you can't run your business anymore. Your wife of 19 years decides she's done and leaves for another man. You're suddenly a single dad to a 17-year-old daughter and a 2-year-old son. No job, no car, no money, and rent is due in 2 weeks. That was my reality, and honestly, I thought it was game over. But here's where the story gets interesting. 2 days after my wife walked out, I did something that seemed absolutely crazy at the time. I took my real estate license test. I had been secretly studying for months, planning to surprise her with this new career path. Even though she was gone, I figured, what did I have to lose? When I passed that test, I felt this tiny spark of hope for the first time in months. That spark wasn't enough to pay the bills, though. Reality hit hard when I realized I needed immediate income to keep a roof over my kids' heads. So I swallowed my pride and took a graveyard shift at Amazon. Picture me working all night in a warehouse while my teenage daughter stayed home watching her baby brother. During weekends, I'd drag myself to open houses, praying someone would walk in without an agent so I could maybe make my first sale. The math still wasn't adding up. Rent was eating up most of my Amazon paycheck, and I was falling behind on everything else. That's when I made another move that seemed desperate at the time but turned out to be genius. I got my hands on a decent used car from a family member and signed up to drive for Uber and Lyft. My schedule became absolutely insane. I switched to day shifts at Amazon, then drove rideshare all night long. I was literally working around the clock, but you know what? The money was finally starting to work. I was covering rent, keeping food on the table, and my kids were safe. That's all that mattered. About a year into this grind, I realized I could make more money if I switched from Amazon to another company in the area. More pay meant more stability for my family, so I made the jump. Things were actually starting to look up. I had found my rhythm, and we were not just surviving but building a little cushion. Then Coldwell banker fired me. Yes, you heard that right. The company that supposedly never fires anyone as long as you pay your dues decided I wasn't worth keeping around. I hadn't sold a single house yet, so technically it just meant finding a new broker, but it felt like another punch to the gut. Little did I know this rejection was about to become the best thing that ever happened to me. I was driving to sign with Keller Williams when my phone rang. A friend convinced me to consider working with a temp agency instead. I was skeptical because temp work felt like going backwards, but I had learned to stay open to unexpected opportunities. The first 2 days, they placed me with Toll Brothers. The work was decent, and I could see myself building something there. But on day 3, everything changed. They sent me to work with a local developer, and I walked into what would become my new life. The broker of record and the developer saw something in me that I hadn't seen in myself for years. They took me under their wing, taught me the business from the ground up, and showed me what real mentorship looked like. After just a few months, they made me an offer I couldn't refuse. They hired me away from the temp agency, gave me a salary plus commissions, and presented me with an opportunity that would change my kids' lives forever. For the first time in years, I went from working 4 different jobs to focusing on just one. But more importantly, I discovered parts of myself I never knew existed. Working under pressure, managing crisis situations, and rebuilding from nothing had developed skills and resilience I never imagined I possessed. Here's what I learned through this entire journey. Sometimes life has to completely tear you down before it can build you back up into who you're really meant to be. That car accident, losing my business, my wife leaving, all of it felt like the end of my story. But it was actually just the end of one chapter. 3.5 years later, I can honestly say I wouldn't change anything if I could. Not the pain, not the struggle, not even the nights wondering how I'd make rent. Every single challenge forced me to discover strength I didn't know I had, and opened doors I never would have walked through otherwise. If you're facing your own rock bottom moment right now, I want you to remember this story. Your current situation isn't your final destination. Sometimes the worst things that happen to us are actually redirecting us towards something incredible we never would have found otherwise. The key is refusing to give up and staying open to unexpected opportunities, even when they don't look like what you originally planned. Your comeback story is waiting to be written.